Caitlin Clark has been tearing up the WNBA with her elite shooting and playmaking abilities, and she has led an Indiana Fever team that had struggled in the past all the way to a playoff berth once she was able to get her grip on the league. For shooting is second to none, and it is unmatched, but this is the way that she plays, and that is the way that she has gotten to become one of the best women shooters of all time. It's just 22 years old, but without further ado, let's look at some of Caitlin Clark's most impressive, most shocking, most Steph Curry kind of three-pointers that she has hit over the course of her career. To start things off, we can go all the way back to college days, where she was able to take the Iowa Hawkeyes to the top of the headlines even if she could never win the coveted NCAA title, and cut down the nets. It's in an away game against Big Ten rival Ohio State. Caitlin Clark was able to pull up from the logo on the side of the court, and with a defender right in her face, she was able to knock down the three to the shock of the Ohio State fans and the crowd. In another away game during her college career, Caitlin Clark was able to pull it from the rim on the Michigan court even with a defender close to, or she had the shot. Not as the announcer screamed, "Are you kidding me?" Caitlin Clark has been magnificent. And even though this was earlier on in her college career, he was still an omen of what was to come for Iowa Hawkeyes fans, and even just for basketball fans in general. Now moving on to her WNBA career. For a moment when Clark first entered the WNBA, people knew that the number one pick would make a splash, but no one could have guessed what kind of impact would really come. She was born making records left and right, and became the fastest WNBA player to reach 100 three-pointers, and she did it an impressive Caitlin Clark fashion. Catching the ball on the wing, Clark was able to make her defender bite before appearing to drive. Then she had a nasty step back to create just enough space to get a nice shot off as she knocked it down, to the delight of the Fever fans, while making history. Her first WNBA three-pointer was a little bit different, but it was just as impressive, with what seemed like the whole world watching. And late in the first half, the Fever had an inbound play drawn up, or Caitlin Clark was able to use to have her teammates to get the ball on the wing. Although she could have taken her time and driven to the basket, court decided to just pull it, even if it did not look like it would be the prettiest shot. Clock ended up getting the quick and impressive three in. The Fever fans realized that they had something special on their hands. Would you like a chance to go and see crazy and exciting moments like these right here? Well, if you want to win free NBA or WNBA tickets, we're giving you the chance to see stars like Stephen Curry, LeBron James, or Caitlin Clark live in person. Click the link in the description to enter now. Don't miss out on this exclusive offer. It's free to enter, and it only takes a moment. Now let's get back to watching Caitlin Clark go to work. Moving backwards to her college days, once again Clark has had some clutch shots to help her team out. In a game against a hungry Nebraska team who was playing the Hawkeyes a little too close, Clark decided to take matters into our own hands. In the first half, court came off of a screen, and after getting double-teamed, decided to pull it before her defenders could get too close. She was able to drain the three-point, helping the Iowa Hawkeyes build up a lead as they eventually won the game by a wide margin, 92-73. Caitlin Clark is gained some rivals throughout her time and the basketball scene, and one of those is Angel Reese and other members of the Chicago Sky, namely Kennedy Carter, who even went so far as to shove her to the ground. But when it comes to Caitlin Clark, her game does that talking. So in a game this season against the Chicago Sky, Caitlin Clark was able to hit a crazy three-pointer coming off of a dribble handoff. She proceeded to, with defenders draped all over her, let a contested three fly, knocking it down to help silence the haters. Another player who is said to be the best shooter in the WNBA is Sabrina Ionescu, and for the right reasons, who is one of the star players on the hard-to-beat New York Liberty. And when the Indiana Fever welcomed the Liberty into their home arena, Clark seemed to want to challenge the Ernest for the title of best shooter in the WNBA. She was able to once again hit her signature step back as she led her defender to believe that she was going to drive before hitting a shot right in front of her face, and the Fever fans loved it. And when the roles were reversed and the Fever were playing the Liberty and New York, Clark was doing the same stuff. This time she was not able to create a ton of space, but that did not matter to Clark, as she showed that no amount of pressure and no lack of space was gonna bother her. With the Fever down by 21 points, court just decided to let shots fly, like this one right here with Courtney Van Der Sloot doing pretty much everything she could stop Clark from shooting. Clark let one fly right over the top of her, and it fell, and even a New York Liberty fans and the crowd had no other choice but to applaud after they had seen a shot that does not happen too often. Now back to some clutch college shots. She had some game winners to start these off. We have a game where the Michigan State Spartans came into the Hawkeyes home court and gave them some issues, but nearing the final buzzer the game was tied with less than 5 seconds left. Clark's teammate Anastoki had one goal, get the ball to Clark. Clark was able to grab the ball and with literally no time on the clock let a shot fly with a step back that left her all the way back at the Iowa Hawkeyes half-court logo. After what felt like forever, the basketball went in the Bucket and the I crowd went absolutely buzzard, but that was not the only long-distance buzzer beater that Caitlin Clark was able to get when her team needed it the most. Late in the 2022-23 season, the Iowa Hawkeyes were up against a Big Ten rival Indiana, but things were looking a little bleak. But with 1.5 seconds left and down by to the Hockey, I had one last shot at the game with an inbound pass. Everyone knew who the ball was going to, but after Caitlin Clark's defender had a little bit of trouble after getting hit by the screener, Caitlin Clark had just a glimpse of fresh air with defenders converging on her and the game on the line. Court put up a running three-point prayer as the ball fell in. The Iowa bench fans and players jumped for joy as they had just taken down the number 2 Indiana team. Now let's shift to a clutch moment and Caitlin Clark's WNBA career. Early on in the season, the Indiana Fever traveled to play the Los Angeles Sparks and the game was tight. With 2 minutes left, the Fever were up by 3 points, but they really needed another bucket to give them enough breathing room so that they could have a little bit of weight lifted off or their shoulders. So once Caitlin Clark at the ball, she lowered her defender to sleep with, then all of a sudden she pulled it from logo range, getting the deep three-pointer to fall to help the Fever grow their lead going into the final couple minutes of the game. And yet another close fourth quarter against the Connecticut Sun. The Fever were down by 1. The Sun had the ball, but Aliyah Boston was able to make a hard tough block on the defensive side of the ball to get the Fever running the other way. Erica Weaver had the ball but dumped it off the Caitlin Clark, who were running up the court, stopped on a dime to let a shot fly. She nailed it, and all of a sudden the Fever were in control. Even though the Fever would ultimately lose this game by 4 points, this play showed that there were some exciting moments that would come from exciting play of Caitlin Clark, and that the fans would be in for a fun time while watching Clark play. Now for the last shot and this video, and while it did not happen during her time in the WNBA, it brought a lot of hype to Caitlin Clark and women's basketball as a whole. During her time in Iowa, Clark broke a ton of records, too many to list them all, but there was one record that she had been chasing her whole college career. And that was the NCAA all-time scoring record. But finally, up against the Michigan Wolverines on her home court, Clark only needed a points to break the record for the most points scored by an NCAA women's basketball player. She was able to get 5 points quick, and all of a sudden the record was right there, only 3 points away. Many people wondered how she would pick your poison with how she was gonna take the record, but after a Michigan Wolverines rebound, Clark was able to receive the ball. But what she did next was close to unbelievable. She pulled it from deep logo range, showing off her limitless range, and even though there was a defender right in her face, it didn't matter as a shot left her hands, and with the entire arena watching her every move, she nailed the three and was forever engraved in the women's basketball record books once more. She go for. But this time he was bigger than anything else that she had ever done on a basketball court. I will gave her recognition in so many ways, and even put her name and number on the court where she shot the ball from, and so of course that led to her teammates attempting the shot, but even they as Division I basketball players had trouble hitting the shot during the pre-game of their match up against Illinois. Located on, Clark had no problem knocking another one down from that same spot right in front of him. Caitlin Clark has left a lasting effect on the NCAA women's basketball scene, hitting shots from everywhere and putting her name on almost every major record in terms of scoring or passing, and she brought a ton of new fans to the scene. While she was at it, not only were records shattered on the court, but the Ohio guys were able to break attendance records, and Clark was able to help bring record numbers on TV to the women's basketball scene anytime she stepped on the basketball court. Stephen Curry, one of the greatest shooters of all time, even had some words to say about giving Clark. He complimented her game as a whole, saying never was over before you know and understand just how much power thing is other on the court. A Cobra boys was the way as you plays in their range. The level of difficulty or shars as our server goes comparison, there were a lot of that affair Caitlin Clark's been compared to you. I think it almost robs or of like the rest of her game, because he says and good floor fair overall meal for games his rack and of course the trip with those every name. Well liked her shooting ability was so or bar with the rest of her games as polished as then, so this must see TV to get that kind of response from Steph Curry is humbling, but it comes to show that Clark really is all that people say she is, and it tells you where we call her shooting Steph Curry like at times. Alright, that's it for this one, thanks for watch.